Oh, it works.
It does work.
Let's see if I can hear you. Hold on.
My sound's not very good though.
Oh, let's get my headphones on. I need to put my headphones on. How's it going, boss?
Yeah, surviving you.
Yeah, I'm trying to hop in and out. I went to Confed this morning, so it was good.
Oh, nice to track.
Yeah. So I try to go now. Like I've been going a lot. I even do like some one-on-ones out there,
Oh,
but I
cool.
try to do like not counting the one-on-ones. I try to be out there like 3, 4 times a week.
Nice.
It's so nice because you can see the mountains. I forgot.
Yeah, it's a good view.
And how you been?
Yeah, we're doing okay. Yeah, doing what we can.
Yeah. So
Keeping
what
at
do
it.
you do? What are you doing as a chiro now that you can't really do much?
Well, for my clinic, our NDs are still doing telemedicine, so I'm
Yeah,
going into the
yeah.
clinic daily and basically doing all the supplement ship outs and like
Oh, that's
curbside
right.
pickups. And then yeah, I'm just kind of seeing some acute, urgent cases. So basically, everyone with a thrown out back or neck. So
Definitely.
I'm seeing
Yeah,
one, two, maybe three people at most a
yeah.
day.
Yeah. What are you doing
Yeah.
with your free time? Like, are you going crazy or what?
Well, I haven't set an alarm in a month, so that's weird. Usually like 8 a.m., 8:39, we'll work out for an
It's so
hour or
nice to have
two.
your body just wake up naturally, though.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like,
And then
got
you're
a
kind of
8 hours
like,
plus of sleep every night.
right? The old like, what time is it? Like you don't even know because the alarm's not
Yeah,
going off. That's
yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
Okay,
So
so
that's
the way
cool.
I wanted to start, I wanted to give you just 5 minutes just to spit. Just who's Amber? If literally I never knew who Amber was, didn't know your profession, nothing about CrossFit, nothing about your travel, like who's Amber? Go.
Okay, go.
Go.
Oh, okay. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Amber Eckel. I'm a chiropractor here in Burnaby. I co-own Aurora Integrative Medical with my business partner, Dr. Courtney Campbell. I live locally. I live 7 minutes from my clinic. I CrossFit primarily at CrossFit 604, but right now out of my condo, living room and patio. So trying to
Exactly.
acquire the equipment we can get. Yeah, keep busy with fitness, exercise, helping people. That's the gist. I love traveling. Typically, in a perfect world, I basically work 6 days a week to travel every 4 to 6 weeks. So when I go on my calendar for the year, I block off, a week to 10 days, maybe even up to 2 weeks every 6 weeks. So love traveling, love seeing the world. I try and, maybe hit about 10 countries a year. Go on trips with my boyfriend, go on trips with my girlfriends, go on trips with my mom. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So where was the last place you went? Was it Egypt?
Yeah, so just in February, we went to Egypt and Bahrain.
Oh,
Most people have never heard of Bahrain. It's a little tiny country just above Qatar in the Middle East. There's a
oh
bridge
yeah,
to
okay.
Saudi Arabia. It's kind of where the Saudis go and vacation because you can go to movie theaters, you can drink, you can eat, you can have a pretty good life over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's sweet. Okay, so like how'd you start in Cairo? But first, like what's your sports background? Like did you have a sports background and then you transition into Cairo, or were you like totally doing something else and then you were like, oh, this interests me? Like how'd you get into it?
So I grew up in super small town Saskatchewan, so I'm talking 250 people in my town. Graduated with
Jeez.
a high school class of 11, if that's a class. Um, I was always into sports. Growing up in a small town, you play every sport, whatever sports in season, that's what you're playing. So in the fall, if you're playing volleyball through the winter, you're playing badminton, you're doing track in the spring, you're doing softball, spring, and those kinds of things. So I just kind of grew up going with the flow and doing everything, which I
How's
think is
track in
what
Saskatchewan? How's track in
how's track in
Saskatchewan?
Saskatchewan.
That's what I need to know.
You can look up the stats. Leave
Okay,
that to you.
continue. Go ahead.
But basically, when I was 12, 13, one of my coaches, I remember actually graduating high school and going into university and then wanting to go into chiropractic. And that was probably the first time I had heard of chiropractic and kind of just looked into it, just kind of followed his journey. And I was like, wow, that's super cool. So
Mm.
by the time I was 14, I was like, I'm going to be a chiropractor. So for more than half my life now, I've wanted to be a chiropractor. I am a chiropractor. I graduated high school when I was 16 years old. Uh, Finished my first,
Jesus.
yeah, most
I
people
didn't
don't
even
know.
know that.
Yeah, so
I'm
I
sure I'm gonna learn a lot. I'm gonna learn a lot
learned
today,
it.
so it's good.
Yeah, so I graduated. I actually planned to go. I mean, I had a love for traveling from a young age, so I planned to go on a year exchange for my grade 12 year. So my mom was a teacher. She helped me basically get my grade 11 English and math and sciences so I could go from grade 10 to grade 12. And
Mm.
so I just skipped grade 11. Graduating kind of at an earlier time, just knowing that I could maybe go on an exchange for a year. And my cousin did the same, and she actually just kind of had a not a great experience. So I decided to go just on a short-term one. So I actually lived in Switzerland the summer after my high school year. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up graduating early. I went straight in kinesiology, did my kin degree at U of S,
Hmm.
and that with the intention to go to chiro school. So I was just kind of on that pathway. So I finished my kin degree when I was 20, and then headed down to SoCal.
Is that where you did your chiro?
Yeah, yeah.
What was the
So I
school?
mean, it's Los Angeles College of Chiropractic, but it's under the umbrella of Southern California University of Health Sciences.
Ah. So my buddy went to fuck, I'm gonna butcher this. It's some famous chiropractic school in San Francisco. I swear if you say it, I'll get it. I don't know, but
Life
uh,
Life West.
no, it is
Palmer.
Palmer. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you went to
Palmer.
Palmer.
Yeah, Palmer's just south of the Bay Area. There, it's in San Jose.
Yeah, yeah. So I think he lived in San Francisco, and then he was going to school back and forth there. That's like one of the famous ones that I know of. I don't know of many famous chiropractic schools, but other than your
You know
degree,
why
like
it's
so,
famous?
why? Oh yeah, because the guy
Well,
invented it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
D.D. Palmer is the inventor of chiropractic. The main school is in Iowa, Davenport, Iowa, and then they opened a sister school in the Bay Area.
So there's
So
only two.
that's kind of why it's known.
Oh yeah, okay, because it's named after the guy who invented it.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, on that, what's the backstory? Isn't there like a story where like he's like a swindler or a fucking like I heard a backstory on this Palmer guy that he was a chiropractor and he invented it, but he was also like I don't know what the word is. What's the word? Like where you rip people off. I don't know if that's true, but like
Oh, I've
apparent
never heard that.
you never you gotta Google that. You gotta Google that.
No, I've never heard that. Yeah, I mean, the first chiropractic adjustment was with D.D. Palmer, and he fixed Harvey Lillard, the janitor in the building, and he actually did it and restored his hearing. So it actually had nothing to do with pain or injury or anything. So this, we've, moved toward the mechanical and back pain and neck pain and stuff. But the history and philosophy of chiropractic comes down to brain-body connection.
When around what time was that?
Oh, you're testing me.
Yeah, right?
Early
Or
early
like
1900s.
yeah, like okay, there you
I
go.
think we
Okay.
celebrated our I don't know 123rd or 124th year of chiropractic.
Yeah, yeah. So you like to travel for like you like to do courses while you're traveling. So like where have you done courses and like what difference have you seen between like North American chiropractic technique and like anywhere else that you've learned? Or, like anything that noticeable that you were like, oh wow, like we don't even touch that in North America.
I mean, I think we're pretty inclusive in terms of chiropractic. Like, we're pretty advanced in North America compared to the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, okay.
If you look at, chiropractic in the UK, osteopathic is actually more prominent than chiro is. But chiropractic is exploding in Europe and it is in South America and so. But all the major schools are in North America. So when I moved to Vancouver, I did most of my continuing education locally. One, financially, I needed to, and two, it just made more sense to network with people and get to know people here in Vancouver. And
Definitely.
so on. And then I decided, like, hey, let's see what else is out there. So I've gone to some pretty cool conferences. I mean, I do my active release. We're required to keep up with it once a year. So I'll typically go and do it in Europe just because you get to learn from not only chiros, but you see a more integrative approach with osteopathic, with personal trainers, with their massage therapists, with their body workers, and so on. So you're not just in this, like, chiropractic world only. If you want to, I mean, there's tons of chiro conferences I go to too that are specifically for chiro, but when you can go learn, and I went to Australia for a course last year, and you just can learn different things from different people around the world, from different backgrounds and different cultures and such like that. So I think it's pretty
Definitely.
cool.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is. If off the top of your head, could you think of like one thing that you went and learned like overseas that you were like, wow, like that's amazing. Like I'm gonna use that when I practice every day, or like often? Like, what's one thing that you learned over there that you were like, wow?
You know what? I did a really cool conference last year that I was actually hoping to go to this year, and it wasn't a chiro conference. It was called Isokinetic, and so they're a rehab focused company, let's call it. But they held this conference of like where there was people from over 90 countries, and they did it at Camp Nou in Barcelona. And so it was this huge venue, and they had just, they had surgeons, and they had chiros, and they had physios, and they had strength and conditioning coaches. And I think that was the coolest to see how far surgically they're ahead of us, because
Definitely.
not that that's what I do, but I learned a lot in terms of, what they do with hernia surgeries was so different. We're so behind in terms of that. And, we're in Canada, we're still using the mesh in the abdomen, and they're like actually going in and intricately stitching the tissue back together. So I learned some cool surgical stuff and rehab stuff there. And I was hoping to go back to that this year, because it was actually, well, it's probably canceled now, but it is supposed to be in Lyon, France. And they just pick cool venues. You see just in the expo areas, the hyperbaric oxygen chambers, the VO2 maxes, the just different testing stuff that we don't really get access to, even though I know we have it, but it's hard.
We don't have it that, like, in Canada, it feels like we don't have, it's not as prevalent here.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I did my kin degree, we got access to that stuff. But if you're the general population and you're just like into fitness and exercise and you want to test your VO2 max, you can't just go do that.
Yeah, right. It's very tough.
Yeah.
Even like people even have a hard time like really getting an accurate number for their body fat. Like they think that standing on the scale they get it, but if they really don't, and like even pinching the fat and stuff like that, they say it's accurate, but like there's some really stringent tests that I know that are out there that really isn't available to the general public, which sucks, because I feel like even like stuff like float tanks and like cryo, like that stuff is so amazing, and I feel like so many more people will do it. It's kind of sort of similar to like meditation, like more people are getting into it, so I feel like they get into that. A lot of people like it a lot more. Yeah,
the accessibility is just not there, what it could be, and you learn about all those things there. And you know what, they actually talked about a ton of injection therapies, which we're still in the basic or in the kind of entry-level injection regenerative medicine therapies in terms of prolotherapy and PRP. But you look in Europe and what they're doing, and they have totally different technologies and stem cells and stuff that's just not approved for us to do in Canada.
That's actually one question that I wanted to ask you about, if you like have any knowledge of it, like, because obviously I listen to a bunch of podcasts, and like Joe Rogan's a big one, and he's always talking about getting stem cells done at his shoulder. So like what is it, and like what does it help do? Like if someone was to get one today, what would it do for them?
Well, that's not, I don't think I could go there in detail.
Oh yeah, okay. See, like I was always wondering, because he would have like a rotator cuff, and then they'd shoot stem cells into it, and then apparently it'd be like a lot stronger than if you were just to do like even to get surgery or to do like just regular rehab. The stem cells kind of like rebuild the tissue and do like stuff that's way above my head.
They're doing it from like there's the placental, and then there's the one that's made in the lab.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of like if you're looking at the tiers, you would start with prolotherapy, which is just your procaine and dextrose, right?
Oh, that's right.
If that failed, then you would look into PRP, which is your platelet-rich plasma. And if that failed, then you'd be looking into stem cell. And then you'd have to like weigh your options of which direction you want to go with stem cells. And, they're taking all sorts of different tissues and making these stem cells. But I think it's so far away from being approved in Canada, in all honesty. And I mean, I have no experience in terms of getting that. I've had Prolo, I've had PRP, but I've never gone as far as stem cell. I've never needed to go as far as stem cell. So I think the cost of it is substantial. Like if you're getting stem cells in your shoulder, it's going to be $5,000 a treatment, right? And most people aren't going to be
able to afford that. Yeah, definitely. When do you think it's gonna be like more prevalent or more pronounced in Canada as it is other places? Like timeline wise, you think in like the next 5 years, 10 years?
10 years.
10 years away? That's crazy. See, because I feel like I hear about it all the time, but in terms of seeing it or knowing people who do it, it's just not done in Canada.
Yeah, like I mean, you can get it done right across the border, but it's
all about
I
the
don't
money.
think it'll be up here in terms of too soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you do obviously. Sorry, go ahead.
They have to put training in place for who's going to do it. Is it going to be our orthos? Is it going to be our naturopaths? Is it going to be who's going to do it, right? As chiros in BC, we're not allowed to puncture the skin, even though we know our anatomy excellently. So it'd be nice to see just basic needling in our in our scope of practice, and we've been working on that for years, and I've been practicing 8 years now, and I've been waiting for that. So things don't move as fast as we'd maybe
No,
like.
things take forever. So you do a lot
Yeah.
of like research and obviously a lot of courses, but I know you do a little bit of teaching. So talk to us about like the teaching that you do. Like, where do you teach? Where do you help?
Yeah, so when I first started practicing, I actually got in contact with one of our new RMT schools that came about in 2012, VCC here in Burnaby,
Hmm.
so right by Metrotown there. So I actually taught their MSAC, musculoskeletal anatomy and kinesiology, for about 6 years. And then, we were on an 11-week cycle, 11 weeks on, 1 week off, etc. And so after teaching the same class about 17, 18 times, I was like, okay, I know this stuff pretty good. I'm going to move on. But for about the last 5-6 years, I've also been teaching for Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine. So I teach to naturopaths. Basically, NDs in BC can do manipulation in their scope of practice. So they can adjust full spine and some extremities too. So we actually teach 4 manipulation courses at Boucher in their 3rd and 4th year. I'd say maybe 10-15% come out and do that in practice. Most don't focus on the physical medicine aspect of practice, I would say, but they are all trained in it, so they could perform it if they needed to.
Definitely. Do you do that year round?
Yeah, so I teach manipulation 3, and I've recently transitioned to manipulation 4. So I usually teach semester on, semester off, semester on, summer off kind of thing. So I try and teach about 6-7 months of the year if I can.
Okay, that's sweet.
Yeah. We're
So,
all camp for the rest of the year.
okay. So I was gonna ask you back when you mentioned your partner, was it Courtney?
Yeah, Dr. Courtney.
So how did you guys become like know each other, and how you guys ended up becoming partners in Aurora?
It's so in my last year of chiro school, so when I moved to California, I moved to California for chiro school, being like, if I'm going to move somewhere far away, I'm going to move somewhere where I might stay. My school also had an excellent sports medicine program. They had a master's of acupuncture and oriental medicine, which I was potentially toying with at the time when I went down there. So I moved down there with the intention to probably never come back to Canada. In my last year, I was just kind of, I was interning at different clinics, and I was driving all over the place, and I just kind of got to see the true LA traffic.
Yeah.
And then also just American healthcare. I mean, I think being in Canada and having extended health and having just more freedom with our healthcare, in my opinion, was enticing. So I actually came up here for a seminar in my last year, in my last 3 months of school. And I'd been to Vancouver before, but not for any length of time. And I decided, I went back to LA that week, and I told my friends I'm moving to Vancouver after graduation in December. So I moved up here kind of on a whim. But in those 3 months before I moved here, that's when I was, finishing up my boards and deciding kind of how I wanted to practice and where I wanted to practice, and kind of just started doing some research. And I came across my business partner now, Dr. Courtney, and Dr. Haley, who were actually opening a clinic. So I flew up here one more time in December, met with them, loved them right off the bat, and I actually associated with them first. So they brought me in as an associate, and then we just transitioned from there. So my first 2 years, I was just kind of hustling. I was going to town. I was trying to build my business as best as I could. And I kind of thought, if I don't have an opportunity within my first 2-3 years, I'm probably going to go off on my own and open my own clinic. Honestly, literally before I even had time to think about it, around the 2-year mark, Dr. Haley came to me and said, hey, we want you to buy into the clinic. You're doing so well. So we started on a profit sharing agreement for 1 year. And then, 365 days later, that's when I bought into the clinic. Definitely. So we were actually a triplet for almost 5 years, and then just last year, me and Courtney bought Haley out because she decided to move to Kelowna to start a practice.
Oh, nice! That's exciting.
Yeah.
So how's it been? How's it been just you two? How's the transition from 3 people to 2 people? Is it a lot more work? Is it not as much as you thought?
It's a bit more work for sure. Obviously, we're taking on the duties of 1 extra person, but this last year has been actually phenomenal. We hired an office manager, so she's able to help us and do a lot of those tasks that we don't necessarily want to do, in terms of balancing the books and
exactly. No, that's what you got to do. The stuff you don't want to do, you got to hire someone for.
Yeah. We take care of all the the front end, in terms of hiring and staffing and yada yada. But she does so much for us now, so it's been an awesome transition for that.
Definitely. So what is your day-to-day like now, with COVID and being at home? What are you doing?
What am I doing? So basically waking up, like I said, without an alarm. I haven't set an alarm in 5 weeks now. Our clinic has been closed, almost 5 weeks. So we closed on March 17th. Waking up, first thing I do every morning is work out, just like I would at normally 5 or 6 a.m., but a few hours later. And then I'm usually going into the clinic. So I'm going into the clinic, I'm doing supplement ship outs. Our NDs are still have all transitioned to telemedicine, so they're lucky to be able to do that. So I'm kind of going into the clinic every day, just making sure everything's smooth on the front end there. And then I'm seeing the odd acute patient right now. So just kind of filling my days in some way, shape, and form.
All right, just hustling. You got to find something to do during this time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all I have to ask for today. The last thing I wanted to ask was obviously health, and not like we see a lot of new trainers coming along, like personal trainers. A lot of people are trying to do that, like because they exercise. Now they want to show other people how to exercise. And a lot of people are becoming physios, and a lot of people are becoming NDs and chiros because they feel like the health industry, I don't know if it's the money or because they actually are passionate about it. Regardless, it's getting saturated now. What would you, like, what's your advice, especially now that we're in COVID? What's your like do's and don'ts that you would give to someone who's aspiring to be a chiropractor, who looks at you and says, oh, I would love to own a chiropractic clinic or be a partner in one, like one day? What would you tell them do's and don'ts in terms of, oh, just don't waste your time doing this, et cetera, et cetera?
Ooh, tricky. So, I mean, it depends on what phase you are. And I mean, I love the chiropractic profession. I love the integrative model. I love our NDs, physios, everyone we work with, our RMTs, they're fantastic. So, I mean, they're all great professions. I think that they're always going to be in need. And the number one thing I say to people about chiropractic is there's no one out there that shouldn't be getting chiropractic care, right? Like whether you're a baby, you're a 99-year-old, or anyone in between, it doesn't matter. We can help you in any way, shape, and form. And I think that's true for fitness, for massage, for naturopathic. Like it's all a lifestyle medicine, right? Or a lifestyle. So I think there's huge potential. And I mean, people are becoming more educated the more they see. They want to be able to implement those things into their life. And I mean, with the COVID stuff, it comes down to your overall health, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be as worried as we are, because if we trust our body's potential, we'll fight it and we'll beat it and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I think if you're in the phase of already training and becoming whichever respective profession you want to, I think establishing an online presence, you need to be doing that. If you're not online, you're basically going to be invisible, right? So if you are, even a first or second year grad starting to practice in whichever professions those are, you still need to be visible, because you need to remember that you're there or people need to remember that you're there for them. And as soon as things do go back to normal, that they'll be the first people coming to you, right? I think
do's and don'ts. I need do's and don'ts. Like, hey, I took this course. It was trash. Like, I need honesty here. Just like, don't do this, and make sure you do this, because this literally I use every single day. One and one. Give me one don't and one do.
For chiro?
For chiros. I want to be a chiropractor, Amber. What? Tell me. Give me one thing I should do and one thing not to waste my time on.
One thing to do is obviously get good at manipulation, get good at your skill, like hone in on your skill from day one. You need to be practicing. You need to be, even if you're not practicing right now, if you have a spouse or partner or someone, you can be practicing on every single day. I adjusted Drew for the last 30 days.
His back's probably perfectly in line every single day.
His back's in really good alignment right now. Don'ts, I mean, there's a lot of don'ts. I think don't listen to other people in terms of how they built their practice. You need to find what's right with you. So there's so many words of wisdom that you need a mentorship, don't get me wrong, but you need to find what sits well for you. So if you find that niche or you find that way that you think you can educate your people, follow your intuition is really what it comes down to. Yeah, don't try and be someone else. Try and do you.
What you're comfortable with. I got you.
What you're comfortable with, yeah. Exactly.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I know I've been trying to get you on for a little bit, I was harassing Adam, so I got Adam and I got you. Got a couple more people I got to do, though.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.